with the Utah Jazz, it really did feel like they're going to have a strangle on the number one hold for the remainder of the season. I wouldn't say have faltered, but the Suns have just went on a massive run here and have made it super duper competitive. Hello and welcome to the Monday, May 3rd edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Start of a new month, we are almost to the playoffs, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before I start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. That would be highly appreciated. And for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe, leave a review if you're on Apple, and just show any support possible on either Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean if you listen on those platforms. I have an awesome show lined up for you today. Gonna obviously talk about the Raptors rundown at the beginning of this episode. Gonna also talk about Jayson Tatum and where I believe he falls in the top maybe 20, top 10 NBA players. We're going to talk about that later. And obviously, we're going to be talking about just the power rankings like I do every single week to end off the episode. Talking about the Lakers as well. It's just going to be a jam-packed episode. So yeah, thank you guys for all your support and hope you just enjoy this episode. Going to have a lot of things planned for the future. Like I said, come May, I'm going to have a lot more content come out for you guys. And who knows, maybe there might be more stuff coming this week. You just have to wait and see. Without further ado, just sit back, relax, and let's just get right into this first topic. I forgot to do this last Monday, so I had to kind of make up for it on the Friday episode, but we will definitely be starting today's episode with the Raptors rundown. 2 games happened this weekend, and we're going to go through them very quickly. The first game that happened was the Toronto Raptors versus the Utah Jazz in Utah. Very, very entertaining game, at least for the first 3 quarters. Very competitive. Even in the fourth quarter, kind of competitive as well. The Raptors really did play very good defense in the fourth quarter, but again, this theme was happening a lot over these last few weeks, and the Raptors just could not get it done in the fourth quarter. They had 89 points through 3 quarters, and it looked like it was going to be kind of a nice back and forth at the end. But no, the Raptors just could not get anything going in that fourth quarter. 13 points in this game. I mean, Fred VanVleet did try. 30 points in that game. He really did try his best, but like many of the other games before that, the Raptors just ran out of gas. That's purely what it was. Good, just all-around efforts. Kem Birch, very good game. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. OG had 17 points as well. Another bad game for the bench generally. 13 points off the bench for them. I just learned yesterday they're, I think, the second lowest scoring bench in the league. So, yeah, no bench mob really this year for the Raps. But, the Utah Jazz got a huge contribution from Bojan Bogdanovic, scoring a majority of his points in the first half as well. This guy was just on absolute fire this game. Rudy Gobert started off really slow in the first half, but started to pick up in the second half. Clarkson struggled, which we did a good job handling, and Joe Ingles kind of hit some very, very key shots late in that game. So, yeah, unfortunate loss. Keeping it close though. Like I mentioned last week, I do not feel confident in the playoff chances anymore. But the Raptors right now have the 7th best odds at the number 1 pick, and who knows where that's going to lead us. Maybe that can get us into the top 4. Who knows? But we're going to have to wait and see. So, yes, that was Saturday's game. But Sunday's game, a lot more memorable. The Raptors pick up a massive, and I mean a massive win over the Los Angeles Lakers. They win 121-114. It was the freaking Kyle Lowry and Siakam show. Siakam, 39 points, 13 rebounds in this game. Looked absolutely unstoppable, hitting threes, mid-range. He scored on all 3 levels. He was absolutely fantastic. And Kyle Lowry, not to be outmatched, 37 points, 11 assists. Hitting big bucket after big bucket after big bucket. Lots of threes in this one, including an and one from deep, where he had to make the stank. He was like, that was nasty. He was honestly the most fun player to watch that game. Both these guys combined for 76 points. It was just a very, very fun game in general. Lowry had 8 threes in this game. That was just fantastic to watch. On the Lakers side, I mean, their biggest contributor to me was Kyle Kuzma. 24 points in this one, 8 for 16 shooting. Okay performance from Drummond. I know it says 19-11, but trust me, he wasn't really that effective. LeBron still doesn't look very comfortable, 19-7-6. Anthony Davis struggled heavily, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, but 5 for 16 shooting. And the Raptors, what was the difference between this game and the last game against the Jazz and also that game against the Knicks was that they actually performed in the fourth quarter. They kind of gave a 15-0 run there to kind of keep it a bit close, but the Raptors played a lot better in that fourth quarter and they didn't fold. And that was that was a very good thing to see. More fluidity, more confidence, and with Kyle Lowry and Siakam having big games, you just knew that they were just going to take you there to the promised land. Also, good performances from DeAndre Bembry, who actually hit quite a number of good shots, 14 points in this game. Freddie Gillespie, best game as a Raptor, 11.7 rebounds. And yeah, the only two players that didn't score were actually our two starters, in Malachi Flynn, who struggled heavily, and Stanley Johnson. So, very good game for the Raptors. Like I said, the playoff spot is probably out of reach, but moments like this where Kyle Lowry is on fire, Siakam is playing fantastic, does put a smile on my face. And knowing that they still have this in their guys, Freddie had some big performances this year. I think that the Raptors, with a pretty high lottery pick, could make some noise next year again. You just gotta trust, and you just gotta trust what's happening right now. Hopefully, they come back to Toronto. They're more comfortable and at home and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean it's an eye towards next season, but I still feel very confident going into that season. So yeah, that's the Raptors rundown. Gonna definitely come back to this on Friday again to discuss this week's games. But let's move on to this. Jayson Tatum had an amazing Friday night. They were down by 32 points to the San Antonio Spurs, and this game looked like all but over. But man, Jayson Tatum put this team on his back and just put on a performance of a lifetime. He was just absolutely fantastic in this game. It was honestly such a fun watch. It was just a fun watch. And they ended up winning in overtime after losing by being down 32 points, 143-140 against the Spurs. And Tatum tied a franchise record for most points in the game with 60, tying Larry Bird's Celtics record. In this game, Tatum had 60 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 20 for 37 shooting, 15 out of 17 from the free throw line, 5 for 7 from 3. He was just on one that night. This guy was just absolutely fantastic. But the reason I want to talk about Jayson Tatum is kind of how people are underrating him as a player right now. Because I can confidently tell you guys that I believe he is a top 15 NBA player. This year, top 10, scoring 26 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 46% field goal, 38% from 3, which is kind of down, but that's good. That's still very good. And 87% from the free throw line. I know the Celtics have been very underwhelming, but that was a result of lack of, team building, which is because a lot of their issues came from that big man position, which they really didn't address, and just a lot of injuries and health and safety protocols. The Celtics were one of those teams that got hit hard by just this COVID season, and it's highly unfortunate, but that is the reality of the fact. Now, are they better than the 6th seed that they or the 7th seed that they are in right now? They should be 100%. But Jayson Tatum has still played at an extremely high level, probably the best season of his career thus far. I can confidently say that, and he's proven now that he can perform not only in the regular season but in the playoffs. 2 conference finals appearances for Jayson Tatum. I know he's had his ups and downs. I mean, there's some very questionable decisions he makes late in games, but the fact that he is producing the way he is right now, at only 22 years of age, he is absolutely ridiculous. And just the Celtics team, I know, like I said, underwhelming this season, but they still got one of the best cores in the NBA, especially young cores, combining Jaylen Brown, having Marcus Smart around, Jayson Tatum, Aaron Nemeth actually has been showing some things, Payne Pritchard, like I talked about on Friday's podcast. Robert Williams, Time Lord as well. They have a good team. They just need to either grow together or just make some like mini like tinkerings in their lineups. And I think one of those is to trade Kemba Walker, but we're gonna have to go into that in the offseason. But Jayson Tatum being able to score on all three levels, the way he kind of just commands the defense, he's just highly impressive. And I just don't see why people just do not see him as a top 15 NBA player. And he's only gonna get better. He's only going to get better. In terms of players like under 25, he is up there, probably number 2 or number 3 at the moment. He is that good. And I just think that people, like, looking at the Celtics record, they probably look at this as like, oh, he, like, those stats, I wouldn't say meaningless, but they're going to try to devalue his impact, which shouldn't be the case. He has been absolutely fantastic. And I think he deserves a lot more respect from fans. I really do. He still has a lot in this game to grow. He's become actually a better defender than what was projected of him early on in his career. And I think that he is going to be probably a double-digit All-Star appearance type guy. He's probably going to have more than 5 All-NBA appearances. Like, this guy is going to go down as a potential Hall of Famer, in my opinion. And the Celtics are set for the future. Danny Ainge, hopefully he makes the right deals come the offseason. But in terms like of this season, obviously quite disappointing, but I do see a lot of progress in Jayson Tatum's game. And the Celtics, there's just a lot that they can still improve on. And I think that although this has been a blip on probably their projection, I think they could definitely bounce back. And who knows, maybe with the right matchup, they can actually make it to the second round. Like, I'm going to be talking about the races in the playoffs. The multiple races that they have that's going on in both conferences. And the Celtics honestly still have a chance at that number 5, maybe number 4 seed if they just go on a run here. Now, sadly, Jayson Tatum did leave yesterday's game with an injury versus the Trailblazers. Him and Jaylen Brown collided knees, which is something you don't want to see, and I think it's coming at a very, very bad time. But, yeah, man, I mean, it's rough for them. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. I know Jaylen Brown couldn't even put weight on that right leg. Tatum kind of limped off, which kind of looked kind of unfortunate, but let's hope they come back soon because the Celtics are definitely going to need them. Speaking of the playoff races, like I said, like I know we are like 80-90% through the NBA season, but the way that the kind of the standings are right now, like I don't think anything is certain in terms of these playoff races. Like we have less than 10 games remaining, and the only thing I can really say for sure that I feel confident in saying is that in terms of the top 10 teams in each conference, like for the playoffs and play-in tournament, I think those teams are set. But when it comes to race for just certain areas of the standings, there's still a lot of movement that can happen. And we can just start by looking at the West. Like, in terms of the number 1 seed, I mean, if you really want to involve the Denver Nuggets and the Clippers, which I wouldn't at this point, I think with like 8 games remaining, I think 3.5 games is kind of a bit much to overcome. But still, the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz both have the best record in basketball, 46-18. And it's just crazy that the Suns, after missing the playoffs for the last 11 years, have come in here and become one of the best teams in basketball. And with the Utah Jazz, it really did feel like they're going to have a stranglehold on the number 1 hold for the remainder of the season. I wouldn't say have faltered, but the Suns have just went on a massive run here and have made it super duper competitive. Like, and that's just for the number 1 seed. Like, that could be extremely important because with the way the standings are right now, like, say if it ended today, I know the Lakers, Mavs, and Trailblazers all have the same record. But there's a big difference of facing those guys and possibly facing either the Memphis Grizzlies, Spurs, or Warriors. I think there is a significant difference. So the number 1 seed in that West is going to be extremely important. In terms of that, trying to avoid the play-in, especially in the West, I mean, like I mentioned, the Lakers, the Trailblazers, and the Mavs all sit at 36-28. All have the same record, but the Mavs are in 5th, the Trailblazers are in 6th, and the Lakers find themselves in 7th. And the thing is, the Mavs and the Lakers both have spoke under quarrels about the play-in tournament. LeBron being the latest guy yesterday, saying, "Oh, whoever came up with this play-in tournament needs to be fired." And I'm gonna say the same thing. Like I say about everyone complaining about this, or at least like the teams involved. Look, you wouldn't be complaining if your team was top five. I'll say that for sure. And although there are definitely some problems with this play-in tournament, I think it's a great way to kind of keep the conversation going with teams like the Spurs, who I think at this point in the season they would just they would almost write off. Same thing with the Golden State Warriors. Even looking at the East, like we're going to talk about that 7th seed, trying to avoid the play-in tournament. Like no one would be talking about the Wizards right now, but they are still in conversations. Like I think it just creates more buzz for the rest of the league and keeps a lot of teams more competitive. Obviously, there's some things that they have to fix. Maybe like games behind like a certain seed may be important to kind of consider going down the line. But man, this like race to avoid the play-in tournament is going to be insane, especially in the West with those three teams having the same record. Just absolutely insane. Speaking of that, the number one seed in the East, like that is still up for grabs. The Bucks, it really does feel like they're going to be just trapped in that 13, and I think they're okay with that. But in terms of the 76ers and Nets, I mean, they're only 0.5 games separating for them. I mean, the 76ers only are winning because they have one less loss, and even though they have the same amount of wins as the Nets, like that's going to be a very interesting race because, say if you do go into the first round, I mean, being the number one seed means that you're possibly going to face the Wizards, Pacers, or Hornets, which is a lot more favorable matchup than at the moment facing the Boston Celtics. Like that is something that is going to be absolutely like imperative for like these teams to like maybe think about going into the playoffs. Like you want the easiest path as possible. I know you have to face the best teams anyway, but having these like easier early rounds are going to be extremely important to these teams. And facing off against the Celtics, I mean the 76ers have had trouble with them throughout the years. Brooklyn, having to like face Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. I know they might be injured, but that is going to be a possibility, and I think it's going to be a tough matchup for any team. So having that first seed in the East is extremely, extremely important as well. And even the like, speaking of like the play-in tournament, I mean I've talked about in the past the number 10 seed and how the Wizards, Raptors, and Bulls were kind of in the mix for the time being, but I think that race is kind of over, and I think the focus is now onto that 7th seed. There's only one game separating number 7 to 5. You can maybe lump in the Knicks to make it 2.5 games separating number 7 to 4. But I think the Knicks will be fine at number 4. I think they're actually going to stay there. But in terms of the Hawks, Heat, and Celtics, they're only one game separating them. And the Hawks finally got Trae Young back, so they got a much needed win there. But the Heat and the Celtics, both teams wanting to just avoid that first round series because although I have a feeling they will just win their first play-in game so they can secure the number 7 seed, it's just another game that you just do not want to attack your players with. And I think that this seed is going to be absolutely important because if you go look at the 6th seed, I mean, you are facing the Bucks, but that is definitely a lot more doable than facing the Brooklyn Nets team, who probably will be healthy come playoff time. So yeah, there's just so many races out here in the NBA. And the reason I just want to discuss this is that the season is just far from over. It is just far from over, and there could be so much movement over these final 2 weeks of the regular season. And it's going to be something that to keep your eye on, especially if your favorite team, you're just going to want to look at those matchups. And maybe you might see teams kind of drop in standings to maybe face certain teams like in the West. Maybe someone would rather face the Nuggets, Jazz, or Suns rather than the Los Angeles Clippers at number 4. Like, these things could 100% be possible, and there's just going to be so much more movement. And with 2 weeks looking in the regular season, it's going to be an absolutely fun way to end the season for sure. Going into the play-in tournament, which is in 2 weeks, this is where the NBA season starts to pick up its intensity. I knew I talked about the Lakers quite a bit in this episode. Actually, not really, but I'm going to dedicate the segment to them because are we giving the Lakers too much credit? Are we? And look, a lot of people still expect them to be the favorites out west. I mean, right now they sit number 7. I discussed earlier that they've been complaining about the play-in tournament, but look, if you guys weren't didn't have these injuries, you wouldn't be in this position in the first place. But a lot of people still have them as the favorites out west. And I see that. LeBron James, still the best player in the world, in my opinion. Hasn't really showed that since he's come back from injury, but obviously he just came back from the longest absence of his career, so he's going to definitely take some time to get back into game shape. You have that going on. Also, AD struggling ever since his return. Hasn't looked like himself at all. These things I don't think is just going to completely go away come playoff time. I don't. And in terms of the West, people probably look at the Phoenix Suns, probably look at the Utah Jazz and look, they're having fantastic regular seasons, but are they going to perform in the playoffs? I don't think that a lot of people are really believing in them come playoff time. But in my opinion, I just think they just have just as viable of a shot as the Clippers and the Lakers, the Suns and Utah Jazz teams. I would like to include the Denver Nuggets if Jamal Murray was there, but I really don't see that happening without them making a full-on push without Jamal Murray. But man, in terms of the Phoenix Suns and Utah Jazz, I know they don't have the experience, but they have shown this season that they can that they just know how to pull out wins against teams and the lower seeds, some of the best teams in basketball. They've shown that they can compete with the best of them. And look, the Lakers could still be slight favorites, especially with the experience they had from last year. Even without LeBron and AD, they're still, I think, the best defense in basketball. And they have depth now. I mean, Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, Caruso still playing well, Taylor Horton-Tucker getting some minutes, Drummond at the big man position. Look, they still have depth. But these injury issues of LeBron and AD just cannot be denied. You can't just completely gloss over that fact and say that that's just going to go away come playoff time. Because it's not. It's 100% not. AD has only played 29 games this season, and even with the way he kind of just carries himself on the court, watching that Raptor game yesterday, he doesn't. He feels like every few minutes or so, he's grabbing onto something. That is just not going to go away. And LeBron doesn't look 100%. He still needs time to get back into game shape. It's not going to be an easy road whatsoever. It's not going to be possible for this Lakers team unless these two stars, and LeBron and AD, play at their very, very best. And especially if you're in that 6th or 7th seed, possibly even 5th seed, there's a chance the Lakers are going to face that Clippers team in the first round, which is going to be probably one of the best first-round series of all time. But it's going to be probably one of the hardest opponents already come the first round. So that is a possibility. And even facing the Utah Jazz and Phoenix Suns, I know the Jazz's past playoff failures, and the Suns being such just a relatively new team in the playoffs, they're still gonna put up a damn good fight. And with the way AD and LeBron especially come to first round, it's very possible that they can pull off, even though they're a top seed, the so-called upset. And I think that people are just underrating the competition just generally. These teams are extremely good, and there's a reason why they're number one in the first place. The Phoenix Suns being great on both sides of the ball, having that closer at the end of games. This isn't like the Atlanta Hawks team. This Suns team legitimately has stars in Chris Paul and Devin Booker to even take them deep into playoff runs. The Utah Jazz could be a bit different, but they're still top 10 on both sides of the ball, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in basketball. And the reason I just want to talk about this is that for NBA fans watching coming to the playoffs, it's just not going to be an easy road for the Lakers at all. And I do have them still as favorites. I still do. But I think it's going to be a lot tougher road than people project. Especially because of the amount of games that LeBron and AD have missed. And the way that they're still trying to figure out going into the playoffs, whether they're going to play in the play-in tournament or not, we're going to have to wait and see. I just think that, if anything, this is the most vulnerable the Lakers are going to be. And I think, I want to prepare you guys. I think there's going to be a solid chance that the Suns or Jazz make a pretty decent run in the playoffs. And the Lakers, they could be NBA champions, but at the same time, if they cannot get these guys back into game shape and they're not even remotely close to being as good as they were last year in the first round, it's going to be a tough road. And I think that's the thing with this Lakers team. They're just so unpredictable. Are you going to get the best of AD and LeBron in the first round? I'm not sure, and I think that's why this West is probably as open as it's been probably in the last few years. And it's not going to be like a cakewalk for the Lakers like last year. It is going to be a tough road. Before we get into the power rankings, here are some other news and notes in the NBA. Vera Zhao signs with the Cleveland Cavaliers for the rest of the season. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I thought this guy retired. So when I saw this news, I was highly confused. But he's there. I guess he's. I just see him as like the Anderson Varejao role, not the Anderson Varejao role. The Udonis Haslem role that Haslem has in the Miami Heat. Varejao's probably not gonna get much playing time, but there as a mentor. Speaking of Cavs players or former Cavs players at this point, LeBron and LaMelo returned. I didn't really even talk about this, but LeBron returned on Saturday. Played 2 games, hasn't looked the best, but it's good to have him back on the court. LaMelo, he's back. I know they picked up actually a pretty solid win yesterday. Actually, they didn't pull out the win yesterday. They pulled out the win, I think, the first game when LaMelo came back against the Pistons. So it's good to see just 2 of the most entertaining guys in basketball back in, back on the court, so it's nice to have them back. Tyrese Halliburton fell pretty badly in yesterday's game versus the Dallas Mavericks. It looked like he just hyperextended his leg. I know he was staying down. He was leaning up against the scores table, and it looked pretty bad, but from all reports right now, I think he avoided a major injury, which is really good. But he is getting an MRI today, so let's hope for the best, and hopefully it's not too serious. I mentioned this a bit earlier. Tatum and Brown collided late versus the Blazers on Sunday. Tatum was limping under his own power, but still didn't look too great. But Brown had to be carried to the back by his Celtics teammates, and he just couldn't put weight on his right leg. I know he sprained his left ankle before the game, but I mean he missed the last game because of his sprained left ankle, but this one, man, kind of tough. Hopefully we get some news later on today about this. But yeah, prayers up to them. Hopefully it's not too serious because the playoffs are just around the corner and the Celtics need their 2 best players for sure. They 100% need their 2 best players. Man, bad weekend for injuries because Kelly Oubre Jr. also suffered an injury over the weekend. He has a torn ligament on his left wrist, which kind of is attached to his palm, so the Warriors are kind of still evaluating if he can play through the injury or if he's going to be out a couple more games. We're going to have to say and wait on the news this week, but hopefully it's not too serious and Kelly Oubre can come back because like I said about the Celtics, the Warriors just need bodies out there. They just need bodies out there to help them if they want to even have a chance to get into the playoffs. And Oubre being one of their best defenders, one of their best scorers as well, which is saying something that the Warriors need to bring help for Steph, but he's an important member to his team, and hopefully it's not too serious. But yeah, those are the other news and notes. Let me know down below what you guys think of this, any of the topics I discussed earlier. Let me know down below what you guys think. We are going to end today's episode off with TV's weekly power rankings. This is where I go from 10 to 1 teams on this week. Has to do a lot with form, how good the record is, and kind of how valuable their wins are. And yeah, another week. I believe this is week 20 now. So yeah, I've been doing this since the beginning of the season, and we are almost at the end. So this week, week 20, here are my power rankings. Coming at number 10, we have the Portland Trailblazers. They had a 4-0 week, good win against the Celtics yesterday, coming through in the clutch. What's very impressive is that before this 4-game winning streak, they lost 8 out of 10 games. I talked about that in my podcast, I think, last week as well. But they've bounced back. Like I mentioned earlier, same record as the Lakers and the Mavs. So that 7th seed could literally go to any one of those 3. And it's going to be an absolutely race to get out of there because no one wants to play in that play-in tournament. So yeah, it's definitely very much up in the air. The Blazers are on form right now. They're number 10. Coming at number 9 is a team that the Blazers are actually in competition with for that to avoid the play-in tournament, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. 3-2 week. They actually picked up some pretty good wins, but the only reason I couldn't put them higher is because they lost twice to the Kings this week, both without De'Aaron Fox. So yeah, maybe should I put him at number 10? Maybe. I maybe could have kept him at number 10. But yeah, those two losses to the Kings were kind of rough. Luka's still playing very well. Porzingis, man, those injuries are very, very iffy with this guy. Very, very iffy. But let's just hope he's healthy for the playoffs and he can contribute to this team because they need Porzingis playing near his best to even like make some noise in the playoffs. So coming at number 9, the Dallas Mavericks. Coming at number 8, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, who went 3-1 this week. The one game I do want to mention is that win over the Brooklyn Nets yesterday. Very, very entertaining game. Giannis, season high, 49 points. Great duel there with Kevin Durant, where he scored 42 as well. Just a very good back and forth. Giannis hitting a season high as well. I think it's 4 threes, 50% from 3 that game. Very, very good win. The Bucks probably are going to be stuck at the number 3 position, but that's fine as long as their guys are healthy. And they're looking for another deep playoff run. So, yeah, good week for them. They're at number 8. Coming at number 7, we have the New York Knicks. 2-1 week. Obviously, their 9-game winning streak got snapped, unfortunately. But ever since that loss, they won 2 straight games. I think they should be comfortably ending the season at the 4th spot in the East. They've been playing absolutely fantastic. Julius Randle still looking like an All-NBA player. Knicks fans rejoice. They are actually very competitive and actually been playing very, very well. So, number 7, the New York Knicks. Coming in at number 6, we have the Utah Jazz. 2-2 week. A few weeks ago, people probably looked at the Utah Jazz's record and thought, yeah, they have that number 1 seed on lock. But the Phoenix Suns have made up ground, and now they're going to be fighting for it. And like I mentioned earlier, like there's a big difference in trying to face maybe the Spurs, Warriors, and Grizzlies in as the 8th seed compared to facing either the Lakers, Mavericks, or Blazers as a 7th seed. So there could be a massive difference in whoever gets the 1st and 2nd seed, and I think both of these teams equally want the 1st seed. So it's going to be definitely a very interesting race. The Utah Jazz, I think, have a slightly easier schedule than the Phoenix Suns, so maybe they have a chance, but man, this is going to be an absolute dogfight to get that number 1 seed in the West, and it's going to be very, very entertaining to watch. As for this week, the Jazz could have gone better, 2-2, but man, hopefully they get Spider back so they can help with that case for number 1. So yeah, coming at number 6 in the power rankings this week, the Utah Jazz. Coming at number 5, we have the Brooklyn Nets, who also had a 2-2 week. Very, very entertaining game with the Bucks once again. The Nets, I think at the beginning of last week, had the number 1 seed, lost it, and is now half a game behind the Philadelphia 76ers. That seed is definitely still up in the air, but you know they're still playing very, very well. The Brooklyn Nets team. Hopefully Harden's back for the playoffs. I still think they're the East favorites no matter what. I think they'll be fine. Coming at number 5, the Brooklyn Nets. Coming at number 4, we have the Los Angeles Clippers. They were number 1 last week, and man, they dropped this week. And that's mostly because of that 0-3 week that they had. They dropped to number 4, which is highly unfortunate for them, especially losing that game to the Nuggets, where they kind of relinquished that 3 seed. But I still think they're a very good team. They're just waiting to get healthy. Kawhi Leonard is back, which is a good thing. And hopefully they could just get the team healthy come playoff time, because I think this is still one of the best teams in basketball. I think they'll be fine no matter what. I think they would rather have that 2nd seed, but I think that's out of reach for them now. But I think number 4 is fine for them. I think number 4 is definitely fine for them. And right now, there's number 4 in these power rankings. Coming at number 3, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. They reclaimed the number 1 spot. They had a 4-0 week. Good win against the San Antonio Spurs yesterday on a tip-in from Ben Simmons, so good win for them over there. They reclaimed number 1 after going on a pretty big losing streak the week before, so they're playing great. Let's see if they can finish the season strong and win the East, at least in the regular season. Coming in at number 2, another team with a 4-0 week, the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic still playing on MVP form. Michael Porter Jr. playing extremely well, extremely efficient as a number 2 guy. And I know they might not make too much noise without Murray in the playoffs, but as of right now, ever since the Murray injury, they are 9-1. Highly impressive stuff there for the Nuggets, still sticking around. having a number 3 seed could actually be very important to them. So let's see if they're going to be able to maintain that. But right now, I have them at number 2 in my power rankings. Now, coming in at number 1, the Suns were not there last week. I think they were there 2 weeks ago. But now they're back. 4-0 week. Another great week for the Phoenix Suns. A very close game versus the Thunder, might I say. I mean, that's every something to look at. But, they're still playing very well. Devin Booker had a fantastic game yesterday, 32 points. Chris Paul, 18 points, 11 assists. Like I mentioned earlier, they're still dangerous. I know they haven't been made the playoffs. I know a lot of these guys don't have the experience. But this team is dangerous. And, man, if the Lakers are not 100%, this team will take advantage. So, yeah, those are my power rankings. Let me know down below whether you agree or disagree. DM me on Instagram. Talk to me on Twitter. I'll definitely talk some NBA hoops there. But, yeah, I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to follow. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Also, hit the notification bell so you won't miss a video. Remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some amazing content. Hopefully gonna have a guest this week on the podcast. Hopefully gonna discuss some playoff previews. Next week is gonna be just all season and review stuff. I'm gonna make my all NBA picks next Monday, and maybe my award show. Yes, the TV's NBA award show with possibly a guest as well. Next week as well. So it's gonna be an awesome week for just NBA content. And yeah. Playoffs coming around, I think this is going to be an extremely interesting few weeks of basketball, and I think it's going to be a lot of things to talk about. So, yeah, thank you guys for all the support you guys have been given. Hope you all have a fantastic day. TV's signing out. Take it easy, guys. Peace.